This is the cutting video to make Puppy Dog Pete. He is the really cute little dog by Funky Friends Factory. So first of all, what we have to be aware of is these fabrics do have a nap. And I folded it so the wrong side is showing. And let's take a look at the nap. Does it go this way? Nope. It goes this way. And that's important so when you pet the dog, his nap goes the right direction. When you look at the pattern pieces, there is an arrow, and that is the direction that the nap needs to lay. So I'm going to lay these all out on my fabric such that the arrows are going in the right direction. So the first thing you need to do is cut out all your pattern pieces, and notice that there is an indication as to how many cuts. And when you fold your fabric in half, you will get the one in reverse automatically. And there are also letters. And so we're going to put those letters on all of our pattern pieces. That is very important to do. So all of the markings on the patterns, I am going to mark onto the fabric with my Sharpie. So now you get to watch me do this. So I want to make sure that that arrow is straight of grain. I don't pin it. I just mark around the edge like so. Just holding it down. So I can put the cap down. Okay. So then I'm going to mark A, D, and B. And I'm also going to mark the openings, making sure that I'm in the lines. And I just pull it up just a little bit. And this is for the arms. And then there's the tail position. I want to get that right. Okay. And then I even go through the seam line, put some marks there. Okay. I'll put that one back. Now this one, make sure that my arrow is lined up good. And I'm just skimming the outside of that paper pattern. Again, these pieces aren't that big. And we're going to avoid pinning because it just kind of skews that fabric anyway. So this is a part that we're going to leave open for stuffing. And then we're going to mark the legs on the tummy. And then we are going to put the letters D, G, M, C, B. And then after I cut them out, I'm going to put them on the bottom pieces as well. And the leg and the arm, we'll fit those in right here. So I should also tell you about the length of grain. Right now I have the length of grain going this way. Whoops, marked my hand. That's the thing. This weekend when I was sewing my dog, I ended up with all kinds of marks on my hands. I was using a blue marker and it was pretty. My hands are pretty dirty. So now we have to cut 4 of these because he has 2 legs and 2 arms. So these pieces are pretty easy not to get them mixed up. If you don't put the letters on, you will get mixed up. I know I did the very first time. I thought I would speed through it and not have markings. You have to have the markings. Otherwise, it's very confusing once you start piecing this all together. So I'm just outlining this second pair of legs. Okay, now the face, it's kind of at an odd angle, but you got to pay attention to that grain line. These pieces look rather strange the first time that you do it, but as long as you follow the directions, it will turn out just fine. So F, E, J, K, and that's an ear position. And then this is the back of the head. So when you get your fabric, you have to pay attention to cross grain as well as length of grain. And you want the arrows to be length of grain. So now here I'll do ear position and a dot. And if there's a line, you want that line. And here we're going to have A, F, G, L, K. All right. So we got all of those. Make sure they're all marked. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start cutting. So in your kit, you'll have ear fabric, body fabric, and nose fabric. So what I do is I keep my hand and I'm going to cut just to the outside of that line. You can tell these scissors are a little bit dull at that point. These are my shops in the classroom. I'm not able to snip right to that point. That's a little frustrating for me. I like to keep my scissors sharp. I guess these have been used enough. We do have a guy that stops by to pick up our scissors. Okay, and then I will show you how I do this. So now here, it'll be just the opposite. We're gonna have A and D, D and A, and then B is over here. And the tail position will be here. So on this side, when I'm marking, I flip the pattern upside down. And then here, arm position and the legs. So on this side, I just kind of draw the tail a little bit to show that it curves this direction. It's not perfect, but it's enough. And I'm going to lengthen those lines, and I'll lengthen these lines here so I can easily see them after I've sewn my 1/4 inch. So I should show you when you pull this way, there is absolutely no stretch. If you pull this way, there is a stretch. So that's when there is no stretch, Cuttle is great. It does not have any stretch on the length of grain. There is a slight stretch when you are sewing or pulling cross grain. That's how you can tell the difference of length of grain versus cross grain. Cross grain is always stretchier. Now we're going to create a little bit of, oh, let's see. Once you cut out your pattern pieces, you want to place the pattern on top of your pieces so you don't get confused, because you will be referring to those throughout. So now I'll flip this one over and flip this side over so I can also put my marks on. And maybe I'll get to sew this one. So here I will have G, and D, and B is over here, and C is here, and M is there. So I'll make my lines a little longer, and I'm going to write arm on here, and I'm going to write leg on here. The nice thing is it doesn't go through the fabric, so you're safe to use a Sharpie on this. And this is the size Sharpie that I like to use. All right, so arm and leg. All right, so the tummy is cut out. You will get some eyes in your kit if I didn't mention that already. So here I'm going to start on this curve. And if you notice, the arm and legs, the arms are a little bit longer than the legs on this dog. Again, just by holding it, you don't need to pin it. So that is an arm. And I got that marked on that side. And then on this side, I will put my marks. So this isn't as fussy as, say, like sewing a button-down shirt. It's a little bit more forgiving. I try not to move my fabric a whole lot. But once you get it freed from the big piece, then you can spin it around. Notice I don't even have a cutting mat. Maybe I should, since I'm working with markers. All right, let's see, mark the other side for the turn. Suppose I can move that later. So I have the sewing line on here. And the eye, I'll show how to do that when we're sewing together. So make sure the tail goes in the right direction for grain. Put the L. Okay, so these pieces are all done and cut out, oh, except for the tail. So I'll keep all these pattern pieces together. A little bit of Cuddle Dust. Now for this piece, this is for the ears. We gave you some Luxe Cuddle. This one is shaggy, very pretty. And this one has a selvage piece, so you can tell that that's straight of grain. But look at how stretchy it is cross grain. You can really see the stretch. So we will mark this, but we're not going to use scissors. And make sure that we have the backing on there. Now, as far as which way does this go, this one is kind of hard to tell. I would say that it looks darker going that direction, so we're going to say that the nap lays this way. Make sure that we get the backing because it does hang off. There's plenty of room on here. So I'll lay this down and make sure I'm straight. This definitely has a certain sewing technique to it because it is so furry. But it's really going to give that puppy some personality. So we have to cut 4. So there's 2 because this fabric is laying in half. And I'm doing a real light touch with this marker because I don't want to distort anything. We'll put our dot there, but it'll be hard to really see that. Now, we're not going to actually cut through 2 layers. We are going to cut them all individually. So now these ones I have to put in reverse, because when we sew, we have right sides together. So we'll have to cut out 4 individual ones. So now we're not going to cut the fur, we're going to cut just this shiny backing. That's the secret. And by using these scissors, the Karen K. Buckley medium blue handled, they have a serrated edge. So I'm just going to lift this up, the backing. I'm going to try to get just underneath it and either take little snips, or if I hold this fabric down, sometimes I can get it to go and just shave it. Kind of like a little razor blade. There are other cutters too, but when cutting in the curves, I prefer the Karen K. Buckley. So I'm trying not to catch that fur. Just underneath the surface. Now this piece. Now you can just pull it apart. So there's very little fuzz left when you cut it out this way. So that's one ear. Got 4 more to go. Guess I'll start on this side. It's almost easier if I get 2 fingers down to hold both sides. It's nice working with smaller pieces because they're easier to turn. I like to cut away from myself. It may not look like that on the video, but that's what I'm doing. So we'll keep those 2 together. They're kind of hard to see, but that is one set of ears. I think I'll put this that direction because that's how that is. So now I'll do the next pair. It's so fun watching these come alive. maybe I'll put these in between so they don't get mixed up.